Welcome to episode 12 of the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Today, our topic is mindfulness, what it is not. We'll discuss mindfulness and what it isn't. Find out how you put a negative spin on mindfulness and how to counter those thoughts and fears. And as always, come away with a doable, which will help you be more mindful. Let's get started. This is the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast, and I'm Kim McLaughlin, your host. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, inspirational coach, speaker, and best-selling author. I help people feed their soul and nourish their lives by putting food in its proper place as nourishment and develop functional skills to help people better take care of themselves. Today, we're in our 12th podcast, which I'm super excited that we've been doing 12 already. And today, we're talking about another topic about mindfulness. Last week, which was episode 11, we talked about what mindfulness is. And if you want to have a full understanding about mindfulness, please refer back to episode 11. But I'm going to read to you some of the definitions I gave you last week about mindfulness so that you can kind of reimagine what it is. And so then we can talk about what it's not, because I think that is an important component of mindfulness. So what I said last time is mindfulness is maintaining a moment by moment state of awareness of our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and surrounding environment through a gentle, nurturing lens. That's a pretty profound kind of statement about what mindfulness is. And I just want to continue on that idea of being in that moment by moment awareness and sensing that present moment and letting go of the past and not looking forward to the future. So when people have difficulty with mindfulness, I think it's because they have a wrong idea about what it is. And that will be in some of the areas. There are actually lots of things that when I thought about what mindfulness is not, there are areas that people have talked about, ideas that people have talked about that I think that they get confused about what mindfulness really is and what it is not. The other pieces I think about mindfulness is that it is an ongoing practice. It's a practice that we engage in daily or moment by moment, as the first definition introduced. Knowing that it's a journey, not a destination, that we're traveling along this road of being mindful, but that we don't get there. It's not a place that we come to that I am fully mindful and I have embraced mindfulness 24/7, because that's really impossible. We are human beings living in physical bodies, having a physical experience with a lot of challenges that go on around us, and being mindful on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment way just isn't realistic. So what I think of, if you want to consider something really simple about how to do mindfulness, is it's really about doing things in a purposeful manner, being connected to yourself. A purposeful manner, being more connected to yourself. When we look at those as what mindfulness is, I want to talk about what it is not. And I think what happens is that we have been told about different ideas about mindfulness, and they're not really true. And I think it ends up scaring people that mindfulness is really something that it's not. So I want you to listen to all of these ideas about what mindfulness is not in order to check yourself and see if those are any of the thoughts or feelings that you have about mindfulness. And maybe those are what keep you away from being more mindful. Okay? So the first concept about what mindfulness is not, it's not what you think. So it's not about what you're thinking. It's not about the thoughts. thoughts are often judgmental and have an agenda to them, and they're often inaccurate and untrue. And they can be something that we've actually made up. I often say that when a lot of my clients talk about their thoughts, is like, that sounds like something you made up. And our mind then believes it and we think it's true. Mindfulness is not about thinking, it's actually about being away from the thought, about being present just in the moment, in my sensation, in what's going on with me right at this point in time. But it's not the thinking. So mindfulness is not what you think. It's not about your thinking. That's one thing that mindfulness is not. So if you thought mindfulness was having to control your thoughts or get in front of your thoughts, it's not what it's about. Another area that mindfulness is mindfulness is not about being spaced out or disconnected. When I was thinking about this idea, that I think that people can think that mindfulness is maybe that you have to use some kind of drug or some kind of pill or something to have this experience, so that you're kind of really disconnected and kind of in this other world. And that's not true. It's not about being spaced out. What it actually is it's more about connecting and tuning into what's really going on inside. It's really the tuning into what's going on inside of yourself, not the disconnection from yourself. It's about the being with yourself and not doing anything. So there's no drug, there's no drink, there's no thing that you have to do in order to be mindful in a way that makes you disconnected from yourself, which is what I think about when I think about using any kind of drug or any kind of supplement that makes you mindful. That's just not true, and that's not what it's about. Another thing that mindfulness is not is it's not about having a particular experience. There is no particular thing that's going to happen to you. I think sometimes we think that we'll have some kind of experience, maybe an out of body experience, a experience of being connected with something else. And it's not about having to have an experience or having to have something in particular happen. It's really that you're just experiencing yourself. The other thing I think that happens is that the particular experience that people might think will happen is that they're going to feel better all the time, or that the mindfulness will take away pain or will take away suffering. And that's just not a guarantee. That's nothing that we think will happen if you're mindful. It is, once again, being connected to what really is, and without actually expectations that it's going to feel a certain way or that you're going to have a certain experience. And we can get caught up in having it need to look a certain way, having our mindfulness look in a way that just isn't practical. It's, once again, about being connected to your body and being more in touch inside of yourself. Really, one of the things I wrote in my notes is that there is this experience of experiencing what is, and that it's really being connected with what is rather than what isn't, or having an expectation, which would be a future thought, which is not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is being present in the current moment. That doesn't mean that you might have an expectation or desire for a certain experience. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but we want to move away from having expectations during our mindfulness practice, because then we're present with really being mindful. I think you get the point from that. The fourth idea about what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not solely about attention. It's about paying attention to the moment with curiosity and kindness without judgment. So it's not like we're having to pay attention, have to pay attention. That's really more of a thought and an idea of how we have to be. What this is, mindfulness is just paying attention with kindness, with curiosity, and being in touch with, like, oh, I wonder what this is. Oh, I wonder what that is. And not having the judgment. The judgment would be, I should be doing this a certain way. I should be paying attention to this. I should be more mindful. I should be doing whatever it is. And what we want to do is actually have more compassion for ourselves. Mindfulness is about compassion and about being more in touch with whatever's going on with us, that that is just okay, and that that is what is, without having expectations. A fifth idea about what mindfulness is not, it's not about becoming somebody other than who you are. I think that's often a fear about mindfulness. I know it's a fear when I've talked to people about meditation, is they're afraid they're going to lose themselves. You might be afraid that you're going to move out of who you really are, and I'm going to become somebody else, and I'm going to be different than who I really am. And that's so far from the truth about what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is actually that opportunity to be more connected with who you really are. And what I like about it is that it's more of the authentic who you are, without any kind of judgment or preconceived notion about how you're supposed to be, but being present with what is. So you're not becoming somebody else. You're not going to lose yourself. You're not going to go somewhere to a place where you're not who you are. You actually are getting more in touch with who you are authentically inside of yourself. Another area of what mindfulness is not is, it's not about perfection. It's not about doing mindfulness perfectly. Talk about a challenge. Like, so I have to practice mindfulness perfectly. This is often, again, what people will say about meditation, and meditation is not mindfulness, or meditation is not the totality of mindfulness. It can be a component of mindfulness, but it is not what mindfulness is. And we can think that we have to do it perfectly. I have to learn how to be mindful. I have to learn how to do it correctly. And there is no correct way. It's just like life is, nothing's perfect. And we want to move into accepting what is. The way I practice mindfulness today is my best version of what mindfulness is. I am not perfect at it. I do not do it all the time. I would love to do it more often. And I love doing these podcasts on these different topics, and especially this one on mindfulness, because it reminds me. By listening to this podcast, it can remind you to do it. And you won't do it perfectly. So let's let that go and know that you're going to do it as well as you do it, to the best of the ability that you know right now. Another piece of what mindfulness isn't, it's not about challenging difficult thoughts. We're not expecting you to come in and have these thoughts that are going on about how bad your day was, or how bad things were, or the negative ideas that come into your head. It's not about challenging and then, or saying, no, don't have that thought, or I have to get rid of that thought, or I have to have a different thought. It's really about being what those thoughts are and noticing them and go, oh, look at that thought. Isn't that interesting? No challenge, no judgment, no preconceived notion about what your mind or what your thoughts have to be. So we're not going to challenge those thoughts. And I think that can be our mind's way of keeping us stuck when we're looking at being more mindful and looking at being in that practice of mindfulness. Our mind really can keep us stuck by saying, well, I have to do it perfectly. I have to have different thoughts. I have to let these challenging thoughts go, or I have to make sure they're gone, or I shouldn't have them. Those are your head's way, your mind's way of keeping you stuck. And I want you to know that you don't have to do any of that except be present for them and just notice them. and have compassion for yourself and be kind to yourself as you're noticing those thoughts. Have compassion as you notice those thoughts and just let them move on, because that's exactly what they will do. As you're not challenging them, they will move on. A really important piece that I was thinking about what mindfulness is not is it's not a religion and it's not spiritual. It's not like you have to feel spiritual or have a religion to be mindful. And that's another way that I think we get caught up in what keeps people away from being mindful is they think that it's a certain religion. It's not. It might feel spiritual. It might be part of certain religions, but it in and of itself is not a religion. It's about being present in your body, present with compassion, and noticing your authentic self inside of you. So I want you to let go of that idea that it is a certain religion that you have to be a part of to be mindful, because it's just not true. The ninth idea about what mindfulness is not is it is not complicated and it is not difficult. And it really can be incorporated into your everyday life. And it actually is a way to be more joyful and present in your life rather than making your life more difficult. So, what I think of is that if you start looking at different mindfulness practices for yourself, you can just have it be a regular part of what you do. I'm going to have a doable at the end that I think will help you become more mindful in a super easy way, because mindfulness is not difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult. You're overthinking it if you're making it difficult. If it feels hard, if it feels that you have to do it a certain way, or it's complicated, it's not. And that's your mind's way of keeping you stuck and away from being actually more mindful and more present. Mindfulness is not just about meditation. They can exist together, but to be mindful, you don't need to meditate. You don't have to be in a meditative practice. You can, it can help you with mindfulness, but they're not necessary for each other. Being mindful is about being aware, being compassionate with yourself, and being at peace with yourself. That's really what it's about. And it's not just about meditation. So you don't have to have a meditative practice in order to be mindful. There are lots of other ways to be mindful that are different from being in some kind of meditation. Another idea about what mindfulness is not, it's not about stress reduction. It's not about having to reduce stress, but it can reduce stress. You don't have to do anything that reduces your stress in order to be more mindful. Mindfulness is about being aware of the stress, aware about how you're feeling, but it's really about moving through it, about being present with the feeling of the stress, with the feeling of being overloaded, and being curious about it. I'm feeling stressed. Well, isn't that interesting? I wonder what's up for me. I wonder what's going on. And it's really then about just being in the breath and being present to what's going on. It's not about fighting the stress or having to reduce it, but just being present with it. It's a whole separate mindset and way of being, rather than that kind of forceful way that I think a lot of us come at our mindful practice. And it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be difficult in order to just be present with what's going on. What can happen is that can feel uncomfortable, because we're then in the noticing and being conscious about what's going on and being conscious about how we're feeling and how we're feeling in our body, which means then we can be more present to ourselves and not kind of dissociate from what's really going on around us. Mindfulness is not a waste of time. I think that's often what can be said about it, is that it is a waste of time. I don't need to do it. I don't have enough time. So why would I spend my time doing that? it's not a waste of time because it gives you more of an idea of being present with yourself. And that's why I'm going to invite you at the end to have the doable of engaging in more mindfulness to see how it feels for you and see how it can help you feel better and more peaceful within yourself, because that's really what we're looking for. And it doesn't take too much time to do it. It can really be whatever amount of time you want to do it is how much time you spent in mindfulness. That's another way that we can be stuck and be more like in fear and judgment that if it takes a lot of time to do it, I'm not going to do it. I promise you, you have 30 seconds, a minute every hour to just be mindful. You do. And I even say, like, when you go to when you're in the bathroom, sorry, but I'm going to be real. This is like real life. Take a deep breath. You could do that however often you're in there, but you can take a deep breath and be present in your body because it doesn't take too much time and it's not a waste of time. Another idea about mindfulness that I think keeps us away from it is that we think that it means that we need to feel happy or we need to feel good in order to do it. And it's not about having to feel a certain way. It's really about being present back in your body. You're not doing it wrong if you don't feel happy at the end, if you don't feel fabulous and great. It's not necessary that you will feel happy. And that's earlier we talked about you have some preconceived judgments about what it should look like or how you should feel at the end. And that really takes you away from being present in the moment about what mindfulness is really, what it can really be about for you. You might not feel happy at the end, you might not feel good, but you will feel more connected, which in the end can help you feel more joyful, more at peace, and more present, which is really what we're looking for in the end. Those are the things we're looking for. Another idea about mindfulness, about what it isn't, and I think you'll find this is an interesting take on mindfulness, is that it's not for everybody. It's not something that everybody's going to want to do. So you don't need to have your partner do it, or your friend do it, or your spouse do it, or your mom, or your dad, or your kid. It's not necessary that everybody has to do it. It just doesn't fit for everybody. And it actually might not even fit for you. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I encourage you to listen to these podcasts about mindfulness and consider how it might be beneficial for you. If you try it and it doesn't fit for you, don't do it. It can be a tool for your greater understanding and a way to ultimately calm your mind, but you don't have to use this. So what I think of is that if it doesn't fit for you, do something else. Practice a different tool that works for you to calm your mind. I wrote down some ideas about what you might do if being mindful doesn't fit for you. You can do some kind of movement. Movement can be a very mindful and a way of being more present in your body. Taking a walk and just focus on your feet on the ground. Focus on the breath. That's a very mindful thing to do, but it doesn't have to be about being mindful. It can be just about taking a walk. Another thing that you could do is what we call in psychotherapy is we call cognitive restructuring, is look at the thoughts that are coming through and the things that you're thinking and what is a way to reimagine those thoughts. Something like if you're saying to yourself, I feel upset today, I'm upset about whatever thing happened. You could do something like say, I'm choosing to look at it differently and have another spin on it where, this was a great opportunity for me to learn something different, and just make a different spin in your mind about what it is that happened. And those can be really good to help you be more present to yourself and get more in that calm peace center, which is what we ultimately want with mindfulness, if you do mindfulness or not. The last area I want to talk about with what mindfulness isn't is it isn't a certain practice that you have to do. What I want you to do is do what works for you. Do what you enjoy. If you like a certain mindfulness practice, do that. If I give you some ideas of others and they just don't fit, don't do those. Do the ones that work for you, the ones that you enjoy, the ones that bring you joy and just make you feel present to yourself in the end. That's what I'm hoping that you do when you come out of this podcast, is do what you enjoy. Partly when we have to do what we enjoy, we then have to have some ideas about what are we going to do for mindfulness. I love listening to people talk about mindfulness so I can get new ideas. I love listening to podcasts about mindfulness, reading books about mindfulness. My book, Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, has a whole chapter on mindfulness and different mindfulness techniques and ideas. And there'll be a link in the show notes to the book if you're interested in it, because that can give you a lot of techniques and ideas about mindfulness that I haven't gone over in this podcast.
Hi, everyone. This is Kim, and my book is out. Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food is live. I recommend you get it. It has all my 6 components of feeding your soul, as well as my own story. Pick it up now. You can find it on my website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Thanks.
As we always do in these podcasts, is we do a doable for the week, and it's always based on what the topic is and what we're kind of connected to the idea of the day. So what mindfulness is doing something that you enjoy. And one of the things I enjoy is I enjoy the feeling when I take a deep breath. And that is something that I feel connected. It's easy for me to do. That's the thing I can do when I go into the bathroom, is just take a deep breath. To breathe in and out is one of the simplest mindfulness tools and practices that I know. And it's easy because we have to do it all day long. We just don't focus on it and really feel it in our body. So what I want to encourage you to do this week is one time a day, I'm not asking for a lot, people, one time a day to focus on your breath and breathe in deeply, breathe in and out, and do it in a deep way where you can feel connected to either your feet on the floor, your bottom in the chair, your hands wherever they are on the table, or whatever you might be doing, but feeling yourself fully. And take a deep breath in and out. I like to do it when I take a deep breath in and out, is I just focus on the feeling of the breath in and the feeling of the breath out. I will often say in as I breathe in, and I say it in my head, I don't say it out loud, and I say out as I breathe it out, because then my mind is connected to the feeling. I feel the air coming into my lungs. I feel it coming through my esophagus. I feel all the sensations of that breath and how it feels in my body. So I'm going to do it right now with you. I encourage you, this will be your one time for today about doing your mindfulness practice. Obviously, you can do it more than this, but I want us to just get started when we're together. So we're going to breathe in and out one time and just see how it feels. It's really that simple. And I tell you, every time I do it, I feel my shoulders drop. I feel my jaw drop. My forehead starts to feel light, and it just feels good inside of myself. I recommend that you do it as often as you think about it during the day, but at least once a day for this next week. I love talking to you today about what mindfulness is not, to get us to a spot about really understanding mindfulness fully. And I look forward to having another conversation with you on our Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We come to you every Monday with fresh new ideas to help you end emotional eating and put food in its proper place as nourishment. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and review it, and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.